Tabor. We're going to be talking through this big slate on Tuesday. We've got some big stuff out there, big tournaments in the industry. There's a lot of stuff going on. And we got the basketball as well. A really, really awesome basketball game last night. I was a little disappointed at my Lakers.
Which one?
Both of them, both your team and my team.
I couldn't even breathe after the finish of the Knick game. Thank God you had another 2 hours to decompress before you couldn't breathe again from the whatever from the Lakers.
Seriously, that was crazy. It was wild. It was really, really great stuff. I love watching basketball that matters again after the months of craziness. It's a whole different game. Anyway, so we'll get into this baseball slate. We'll talk through it. Sheets, anything you want to touch on? Oh, how was your night, by the way? How'd you do?
I won a little bit. Cashed in the big buy-ins, but on the min cash side of it. In baseball. Basketball, I didn't do much at all. I didn't have Tyrese Maxey, which that's pretty much the end of the story, I think.
I thought I might have had a chance at the lottery because I had 5 guys in the Denver, including Davis and Davis, LeBron, and then Maxey was my other spend up. So I had some chances. It looked like in the shoot around if it went into overtime, but can't complain about not.
Well, I'll tell you, Lakers did put in a freaking effort, man.
They did.
They're tough, man. It's so funny. Once the run started, you just knew Denver wasn't going to stop making anything. It's it was both finishes were just incredibly dramatic. It's just insanity.
Yeah, great stuff for sure. All right, well let's get into this slate. I have there's a lot of ways to go on this slate, and it's interesting because I think it's the ownership outside of Houston and San Diego will be spread out, and I don't think you'll have really any ownership that you have to worry about from that. That's sort of my first look, but I really think that you got a lot of ways to go stacks wise today, and I think a little less pitchers that I'm considering probably than.
I think there's a similar theme that we'll get to when we really get to these games with respect to pitching that we'll address. Sooner than later. You know who did well for me yesterday? I had the Twins yesterday. So those guys did very, very well for me. That kept me going. But I paired the Twins with the Padres, which was enough to get me min cash because the Twins did so well. But that was my success story from last night.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, nothing. That was it.
Oh no! I was just gonna say my problem with baseball, as usual, is and I was wrong about the Twins. I thought the Twins, and so were some of the projections. I thought the Twins were going to be the popular stack, and when the popular stacks hit, usually I don't do so well. So that's. But the problem was they weren't that popular. It would have been okay to play them anyway. All right, so we've got Oakland and your Yankees. What do you like here?
I really don't have anything from this game. I mean, Stroman. I guess his win odds are going to be really, really big, but his upside is usually pretty limited. He's a guy that's going to, show up as a 15% owned guy who's probably going to win and probably not going to get there. I mean, get there. What does that mean? He can get 20, I suppose, but it doesn't have too much upside from there. So I'm kind of off of that. I'm not getting to Blackburn, and I'm really not getting to any of the hitting here at all. I got to do more of this. I want to see if at least even one-offs I'm seeing, and I'm not even getting any one-offs here that I like either. Maybe Seth Brown at 3K for Oakland, but aside from that, I don't really have much interest in this game.
Yeah, filler pieces for me as well for the most part. If I'm going to do anything, I can't do on one level. If you're playing a single entry, I can completely understand playing Stroman and just taking what you feel like are pretty solid points. But the lack of upside for him as a pitcher in general is really frustrating. He needs to throw a complete game shutout or something. But it's the right matchup, so I feel a little stuck on it. I don't think I'm going to end up using him. I just want to throw that out there. I think if you're going to play him, you want to try to do it in more single entry stuff and maybe not go for the ultimate ceiling. I still like Blackburn a lot as a pitcher. I don't think I'm going to play him here, but just throw it out that I don't think that he's certainly not the worst pitcher in the world. Otherwise, I'd be more into the Yankees. And it's not great hitting weather there as well. So pretty much off of this one, but did consider a lot. All right. Next up, we have Atlanta and Miami again.
Max Fried, another, I guess, good real-life pitcher. He's been a good real-life pitcher for a long time, but hasn't really been a good real-life pitcher this year yet. But he's got a good matchup. He's cheap enough. I guess he's fine. I mean, it's not the sexiest play in the world. It never is. And he'll be, another like 15 to 20% owned guy, I guess. So he'll make my pool, and he won't be a big priority for me. I'm not getting any Rodgers. The hitting side of this is interesting because when I first started building stuff, I started building stuff by hand, and I was getting to the teams that you kind of mentioned, like Houston, and I said, okay, if I'm going to play Houston, why not just try to play Atlanta? And then I tried to do it. Man, they're really expensive, the Atlanta guys. So that listen, and they usually are, but it seemed especially so today. So it's going to be very difficult to get to them. If you can do it, great, but because you are going to get, I think, pretty low ownership on them. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it.
Yeah. So the pitching, I'm considering Fried just because this might be a not crazy high scoring night. The difference between he and Stroman is that he's a lot cheaper. That's really basically the reason why I would consider Fried and not Stroman, because I think that there's a very similar type of pitcher. I'm surprised I understand that they're expensive, but they do have more value relief than they've had like ever, because you've got the David Fletcher 2,200 at second base if you want it for your five mans. So I'm actually I like the Braves. I don't know if I'd say I've been overplaying them this year, but they haven't done as much for me as I'd hoped for. It's been haven't had that huge outbreak game for me. But I think that they're in play again. There's a little wind blowing in from right field, so maybe you'd say the righties more for the Braves, which is mostly what the lineup's going to be because you got a lefty on the other side. And David Fletcher, even at the cheap price tag, as annoying as he is to play, you still like to have the 2.2K guy just because it makes it easier to get to. So I have the Braves as one of my teams, but again, we'll see where they stack up by the end of the day. I do think that I was sort of surprised. I thought they'd have a higher run total today and look a little more tempting. All right, which one do you have next? Because there's a few of these 7-4.
I have Houston and Chicago.
Beautiful. All right.
I guess the first question I would ask is what the wind conditions are coming out of there.
Yeah, it's blowing out.
It is blowing out. So
that's not crazy.
Okay, so if you did hand build stuff, you'd get to Houston's. But it's funny when I actually ran my actual builds, I'm not really getting too much of it. I'm actually getting more Cubs than Houston, and even that's not all that much. Actually, that's not true. In 50 lineups, I kind of recreated. I have a 20% Chicago, which I guess that's a decent amount. So I am getting to these guys, but not as much maybe as I thought. And I'm not getting to either of these pitchers.
Yeah, this is a game where I definitely have interest in both sides of the offenses. I think that Houston will be either the most popular or second most popular, but again, I still think it's going to be spread enough. And I like the Cubs side. Look, the Cubs have been the better offense. I feel like we do this with Houston every day. I wonder. I've got to do some back testing here, but I wonder where they've been against their projected run total this year, because it feels like they never hit it. I know they've had a couple good games, but anyway.
Well, they can't be doing well because they have such a losing record.
Right? No, it can't be. Yeah, I know. I haven't gone through everything and checked it out, but it feels like really bad. So I like the Cubs a little bit better than Houston today, just because, again, a little bit lower ownership discount, same game environment, good hitting weather. But I do think Houston is a solid play as well. So I have Houston and Chicago with a little bit of the edge to Chicago here. And I think the Cubs are also in that nice, they're not cheap-ish. They're not exactly cheap, but they're in that nice mid-tier where you can get them. And, man, that Michael Busch, these guys who leave the Dodgers and start hitting like crazy sometimes, it's he's been great this year. So I definitely can get behind the Chicago stack especially. Next up, Toronto.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So it's going to be kind of a broken record for me. These games in Kansas City, I guess, for a little while. In that I'm probably going to end up being all four-sided in these KC games for a little bit. Presuming the pitchers are kind of good enough. And Gausman, despite his struggles, he does have a long history of having upside, and KC can provide upside to pitchers at times. However, Gausman can also give up quite a bit, and this park could be very, very detrimental to Gausman's prospects. So I definitely like the Gausman side and the Kansas City side. Now, I'm also getting to a good amount of Toronto, but the Waka side is the one that I'm a little not confused about. I'm not really the guy that gets to Waka that often. Okay, so I'm gonna leave the Waka thing to other people to win money on. So I would say 3 side of this game. I would say Gausman and both sets of bats are fine.
So I have no interest. I was wondering about it for myself. Like I was thinking, like, okay, is there something we can look into at Gausman? And I was trying to check it out. He definitely doesn't seem like the same guy. He has looked really, really, really shaky to start the year. And ordinarily at 8,500 in this matchup, he'd be 80% owned if this was the same slate like anytime in the last 2 years, you know? So I think getting him at lower ownership is somewhat appealing. And I don't have any interest really in the Royals, but I do think that like if you want to play the he might be broken thing, not the worst idea. The problem is you also have a good bullpen behind him, or what should be a good bullpen behind him. I like the Blue Jays a little bit. I don't think that it's a priority. Odd that Justin Turner is the oldest man in baseball of any position player, and he leads the league in hitting, which is kind of wild. And I always loved Justin Turner as a Dodger fan, but I could talk myself into like a mini stack more than a full stack of Toronto. I have them more secondary. So Gausman, I definitely am going to have some exposure, and I will have some exposure to the Toronto side. I'm worried about the Gausman thing, but I think it's getting to. It's a good enough matchup. It should be a good enough matchup. The Royals have been better than we thought, and Gausman's a good enough pitcher to rebound. So I'm okay with the Gausman, and I'm okay with Toronto, but more of a secondary thing for both of them for me.
So this next game is the first game of another theme that I want to entitle "How Bad Are the Blank?" Okay, so. The thing is, how bad are the White Sox? That's going to be that's going to be fill in the blank number 1. I mean, they're really bad to the point where, like, Chris Paddock put in his Cy Young ballot last night against the White Sox. That's how bad they are. Like, Paddock hasn't gotten anybody out in years, and he was amazing. The White Sox just are not hitting anybody. They're just the worst. And you have a really, really good pitcher on the other side of this, and he's 9,300, and he's your cash game pitcher as far as I'm concerned. So that's that. The other side is Fetty. That's really not for me. As far as the hitting goes, I'm actually getting a little bit of Minnesota again, maybe like 10% right now, and I don't quite have any meaning to play anything from the White Sox in this spot. So for me, it's Lopez is clearly the best play. Does that mean you have to play him? I guess not, but I mean he's got quite the floor in this spot against probably one of the worst teams, so the worst hitting teams, especially against in this spot. So I don't know. Lopez, maybe some Minnesota.
Yeah, I think Lopez is the top pitcher for sure. I don't really know how you even argue that he is. If he happens to have a bad outing, okay, whatever. Like it's the best pitcher on the slate, probably, or maybe with certainly the best matchup on the slate with the White Sox. I don't even think that they have like a major league roster at this point. Of course, now they'll go out and score 10 runs. I have a note. I have Minnesota circled as well. I have the note with my Minnesota is just play the value. Like they're just really cheap. They keep projecting Castro to bat 8th. He keeps batting 6th or something like that, and he's 2,900. Julien, Kirilloff. I like them as a stack and as a mini stack. So I can definitely get behind Minnesota. For what it's worth, it's kind of cold. It's 54 degrees in Minnesota today, and there's a ton of wind, but it's like a crosswind right now. So if it changed direction in any way, it could affect big time what I would want to do here. But I don't know that I want to like fully stack Minnesota as much. More probably a secondary for me. But I definitely have Lopez as the top pitcher right now. And yes, he is the cash game guy. I agree with you there. Arizona, St. Louis.
Yeah, so this is the other team that I would be getting to if I hand built just based on my initial projections and stuff, and that would be the St. Louis side of this. I'm not really getting to either the pitchers. I don't want to play match against Arizona. Don't want to play Tommy Henry. I don't think ever. No, I would say that. I mean, 6,200. I shouldn't say that. I mean, 6,200. Maybe you could talk me into that, I guess. But St. Louis right now looks to be a pretty decent value. So yeah, so some St. Louis, and that's pretty much it for me.
I like both sides of the hitting in this game. Look, it's not been the same thing that we've seen from St. Louis teams past. I can just tell you that they've got 4 guys who are like awesome against left-handed pitching for their careers. And I think it's worth taking a shot here. I don't think it's going to be particularly popular. And, you know, Matt's with all of his things, this feels like the kind of team that would crush him. Like, I like the Arizona side a little bit too. So St. Louis is my priority, but again, both sides definitely heavy interest in the bats. Not getting to the pitching, I guess you could just make an argument for pricing, but I'm not doing that. It's decent enough hitting weather. It's not as warm as you'd like it to be, 61 degrees, but you do have 5-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to, you know, right center. I like this. Maybe we get the breakthrough Cardinal performance tonight. I think I can talk myself into that one. I think it's actually a really reasonable matchup. You got Herrera cheap, and it's a cheap lineup too. Partly because they've been ineffective, but you might get Mason Wynn in there early in the, like, you know, maybe that in 5th or 6th, probably 6th actually. So I just think it makes a lot of sense. So St. Louis is more the priority for me, but I definitely like both sides of this game.
All right, so Seattle, Texas. This is also becoming kind of another theme here. Is that there's something in the projections or something in an assumption. There's something going on somewhere that's either juicing this whole total up or something, because when I do my runs based on whatever I'm looking at, not only am I getting like just all kinds of Seattle, but I'm also, I mean, looking at this projection on Logan Gilbert, they're looking at him like he's like the worst pitcher in baseball. I mean, like they're giving like a 12-point projection. And he's like amazing. So, I mean, there's got to be something either in the weather in Texas or the heat or the park or something that's just juicing both of these offenses up. So I don't actually know what to make of it. Like if I didn't look at anything, it's okay, Gilbert might have a tough matchup, but he's still Gilbert. I mean, what else is there? Pablo Lopez and who else? So I know I would instinctively just say, okay, I'll take a shot with Gilbert. Who cares about the matchup? But something's going on here with somewhere. And then Seattle, I wouldn't even really think about this at all. You know, against Dunning. I don't like to play the lefties against Texas anyway, and I don't like to stack people against Dunning anyway. So I don't know why I'm getting all this Seattle business. So I have to kind of look into it. Maybe you have some insight on this.
I don't really know. I think it's a pricing thing. I'll just say that I'll play Dane Dunning at 6,600 as a value.
Yeah, that I like better. Yeah, why not?
I can definitely get into that. This total is, you're right. I feel like there's something missing. Well, I think it's just the SaberSim total, but still, even at 4.5 total, I don't know why the Mariners were giving them so much respect. I am trying to get, I didn't get the roof open stuff. I'll have that later on today. I'm sure everybody out there can look it up and know, but I'm guessing the roof is probably open if they're projecting this well. I am afraid of playing Logan Gilbert in this matchup, but I initially thought, like, you're going to get no ownership on a guy who, again, you can make an argument of who the best pitcher on this slate is. There's a lot of times where we would say that might be Logan Gilbert, or at least maybe he's on his way there. So it's kind of open. I don't know, just kind of interesting. And it is interesting with this the Seattle ownership. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I guess it's not even that cheap of pricing. So I don't know. I'll dig a little bit more into it, but I don't really know why it's so as high as it is. This game, other than Dunning, and I don't have Dunning as like an amazing play, but at 6,600, I'll definitely get some chances to spend it down. Maybe if you're feeling frisky, getting a little Logan Gilbert is not a bad idea. It's just, I look at this Texas lineup and it scares me. It's just, they don't, you know, they're really, really good.
All right. So let's do San Diego, Colorado. So this is my other theme. And I guess the theme is going to be, like I said, like how bad are, and I guess fill in the blank, I guess the Rockies, okay? And I'm going to say that because I gave this whole speech yesterday about how, yeah, okay, Dylan Cease is fine. He's a good pitcher and everything like that. But why is a road pitcher in Colorado the chalkiest pitcher on the slate? And meanwhile, he gave up 1 run, you know, and I guess that was why. Not to mention that the other team only gave up 1 run also, like until the 9th inning or whatever. And now you get Michael King, you know, the second coming of of Roger Clemens, I guess, who's going to be the second. He's going to be the chalk pairing with Pablo Lopez. And I guess I would ask the same rhetorical question. I'm like, Colorado's got to be just like the worst team like in history. If you're going to get Michael King, going to be chalk on the road in Colorado. So I guess, look, he had 10 strikeouts in his last game. That's great. Okay. He's never had 10 strikeouts before that. He's never going to have it again. Right. So I'm not interested
about that.
I don't know. I'm not interested. And off 109 pitches, I said yesterday that, listen, as a grown man, I have to play Colorado against Cease. I ended up not doing it, but I have to say the same thing here. I have to say that I have to play Colorado against Michael King. That's just the way it is. I mean, like that's not what's supposed to be the chalk in Coors. That's what I'm going to say. So King is showing up as the cash lineup construction was alongside of Pablo Lopez. And there's that. And then, yes, same story. San Diego, just as popular maybe as they were yesterday. They're still going to look good. They're still going to be chalky. You have to decide what you want to do. But if you play King, Lopez, in San Diego, you're probably doing it wrong. It's probably just way too chalky construction. I'd say even if you played, Lopez, King, and Astros, you're probably doing it wrong. So you got to do something different. And I just can't do the King at high ownership unless I'll do something like maybe King Dunning, right, and then play Braves or some stupid thing like that. That's where I can justify.
Yeah. So I hear all your things. I'm confused about why Michael King was less than like 1% owned in his last start in San Diego, and I played him like 20%, and he was awesome. I also and now he's going to be just the chalk. Like it does feel a little weird. I would say that this is really not good hitting. I mean, well, you got 10-mile-an-hour winds coming in from right center field. It's 59 degrees. This is a downgrade from where it was at yesterday for Colorado. Potential for some little pop-ups, nothing crazy. So it is better pitching weather. But I mean, are we sure we want to play either of the do we just do this like? I don't know. I'm interested in trying to figure out who actually is good as far as hitters go. I know that Tatis is a good hitter, but if I'm going to keep stacking teams that score 3, 2, 1, 0, whatever, I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Like, especially when they're chalk and yeah, it's Coors, but so it's still better hitting than everywhere else. It's just it's a worse game for Coors than we're used to seeing. So yeah, San Diego to complement stacks, sure. I guess you might get Tyler Wade in there at 2,800 as a value. Fernando Tatis would be the number one guy you'd want to play, obviously. I think Bogarts would be number 2. And I think that probably Kim would be number 3 and then Cronenworth for me. Then Profar. That would be the way I have it. But I don't think I'm pretty sure I'm not fully stacking San Diego. I definitely don't mind little bits of pieces of again, to fill out lineups, but I don't think I'm stacking anything here. And King, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'm probably not going to play him. I like the idea of playing Dunning at lower ownership, and he's a little cheaper. I think you also could argue that playing he and Dunning together, and Colorado's lineup is pretty bad. Like, I mean, just on paper, they're pretty bad. I mean, you have guys at 5K and all this pricing. None of them are averaging more than like 7 fantasy points per game. It's just kind of weird. Like, I don't know. It's not a lineup that I'm terribly afraid of. So I'm stuck on what to do with King. I agree with what you said that I thought was the most interesting. Off of 109 pitches, that seems interesting to me. That seems like, okay, well, we're going to let this kid throw 85 today, So even if he has to really have it rolling to get there, if that's the case. So that was just my 2 cents there.
Okay, so I have to. This is what I'm going to say. Okay, I have to motivate myself to do this. So I'm going to be playing the 1500 tonight. Mm-hmm. And I will say this: it's got to be a limit, okay? But if anybody looks at my lineup and I have King, Lopez, and more than one, either Astro or Padre, I will give you like $500. Okay, and it's got to be a limit, so up to $5,000. So that's I'm offering $5,000 as my own incentive to not do that. Okay, so that's going to be my offer. If I do actually have Lopez, King together, with more than one, either Padre or Astro, then I owe $500. So it'll make people look at my lineup, and it'll make me make sure to not play it. Okay, ready to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So Baltimore against the Angels. Boy, if you have it in you to play Grayson Rodriguez at 9,600, I will say this: you're going to get him not with anybody else. I don't think anybody else is going to play him.
Are you sure?
Yeah, he's going to have a lower raw point projection than like Michael King.
We'll see how they go by the end of the day.
You think?
Yeah,
I think he's going to. I think he's going to low. He's going to be lower than, obviously lower than Lopez.
Yeah,
maybe you're right. Maybe people play him. I don't know. I can't play that. Griffin Canning. I was about to say that I just rather play Baltimore, and yeah, I am getting the bunch of Baltimore, but 6,800 is 6,800. I mean, maybe this is what you're supposed to do. Maybe you play. How about this? How about you play Canning with Dunning? Now we're getting somewhere. Okay, you play Canning with Dunning. And then I can play all my Padres if I feel like it, or all. Excuse me, I don't even need to play. I can play all my Braves. Like if I play Canning and Dunning together, I can do whatever the hell I goddamn want, So Baltimore is tough. Like I said, I mean I do like them as a stack here, but 6,800 is 6,800. So I think Canning is very, very reasonable today.
Yeah, I agree with most of everything you said. I will have some Canning. And I will absolutely have Baltimore stacks. I love this Baltimore offense. I want to get on them more when other people aren't. I know that they're expensive. Well, they're not even that expensive outside of Henderson and Rushman, and which obviously the two guys you probably want the most. But you've got O'Hearn in there to make things work. I'm in. You might get that Kierstead kid who's 2,400 to make a stack work. I'm in on the stack. I'm also in on Grayson Rodriguez. I think there's an argument that you can make for him being the best pitcher on this slate. And yeah. I think you're facing one of the weaker teams in baseball, and he just put up 30 against them on opening day when he had his pitches limited. I don't know why I wouldn't be playing some Grayson Rodriguez here. So I'm Rodriguez along with Lopez in the high tier feels like an interesting pairing to me. So I think you go for, I mean, that's your probably your max upside pairing. I'm just going to take a really quick look at something and just look at every, go ahead, Cheats. We can start the next one. But I'm in on the Baltimore stack. And again, I know it's weird because I'm interested in Canning, but I'm in on the Baltimore stack. They're like my 5th favorite stack today. So I also have Canning as like my 6th favorite pitcher. So
yeah. So if you didn't like any of that, I got a different guy as maybe the best pitcher on the slate in this particular spot, and that would be Logan Webb. He again, it's not always right, but every once in a while he gets in these grooves. And correct me if my information is inaccurate, but he's kind of humming along here. He's got a grand total of 2 walks in the last 3 games. I'm just kind of like throwing stuff out there. Last 2 games over 20 fantasy points, coming off a shutout win against not shutout, only 7 innings, whatever, but nearly perfect line against them, and he's facing a Mets team that's been on the road a little bit. I don't know. Maybe he can put up a really, really good game. So at 8,800, you want again. I'm just making stuff up that's like that you could pivot off of Lopez or pair him with, because obviously Lopez is the best play. But I think Webb is reasonable. Severino, I'm biased. I'm not doing it. 7,800. Guess it's okay, but I'm just not really getting to too much. Actually, am I getting to any of him at all? No, I'm not. But I am getting to some Webb, and I don't think I'm getting to the hitting here. No, just like a lineup or 2 with the Giants, and that's it.
I love Logan Webb tonight.
Let's go.
I don't understand. Again, I just think that I'll say that I think there's an issue with the projection. I think this is a really good spot to use him, and I'll go I like Severino too, a little bit. You know what I mean? I wish if he was a little cheaper, I'd probably be playing him. But you put so there's the different tiers of the way I looked at today's pitching slate for me anyway. And I've got the Gausman, Grayson Rodriguez. The Lopez, Grayson Rodriguez, that 98, 96. I like both of those. I'll actually play them together a lot, Gausman and Logan Webb in that 85, 8,800. I could see those being the highest scoring pitchers on the slate. And then when you need the bats, you can go Dunning, Canning, or even if you wanted to go King or whatever. That's the way I had the pitching looked at today. My favorite is Lopez, but I think Lopez Webb also might be my big buy-in thing. That's something I'm considering doing. I just think Logan Webb's a really underrated pitcher, and he's been good. And I just don't entirely believe that this Mets team is something I'm supposed to be afraid of. I can't. It's 58 degrees in San Francisco, great pitcher's park. Sign me up. The Mets never having seen Severino before. I'm sorry, the Giants has me a little like, that's the one thing if you've never seen the guy before and he's got, when he's on, really good stuff, even though he can get a little out of it, probably should be considering some Severino a little bit as well. So I like these ownerships that keep them low on Webb. I'm in. I'll take my gambles with Gausman, but the main ones for me are going to be Webb, Lopez. Then you get into what other range you're going for. But right now I have Lopez and Webb as my two favorites. And my favorite stacks to sort of round things out. I like Chicago a lot. I'm really upset the Dodgers are not on this slate, by the way. It's annoying to me. They put a big tournament out there, Sheets, with all the money. And the Dodgers are playing in against Patrick Corbin in Washington. And we could have had a whole conversation about that. And it starts 15 minutes before lock. The other thing locks. It's kind of tough.
I don't think anybody would have played them. What do you think?
You don't think they would have played him against Patrick Corbin?
I was kidding. I mean,
I'm so sorry. Yeah. No, but I just thought it would have made all the rest of the ownership really interesting, like trying to figure out. Maybe nobody gets more than 10% other than the Dodgers in that case, anyway. So, but I like the Cubs. I like the Minnesota value. I like the St. Louis Arizona game a lot, and then I like Baltimore. Those are my main stacks with the little pieces from San Diego, Toronto, Houston, Atlanta. I think maybe I
have a Saberson question for you.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't get this to work. Do you know how to display the teams and the totals?
Yeah. So, this happened to me the other day. So go up to the far right, that little arrow down.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
And it's funny because it happened to me. I spent like 25 minutes. I was going to ask Jordan, and then I was like, "Yep, that's what it is." Finally figured.
I was going to ask Jordan too, but I'm like, I know it's got to be something really stupid. So
we've been doing this a long time. I'm pretty sure that's the first time you asked me a Saberson question.
Yeah. And I knew it was something like that. I knew you. I was hoping you would have it. So there you go. Congratulations.
Finally got it.
And now
go ahead.
What's that?
I said, do you want to do a basketball or do you want me to do that later? I'm happy to do it if you have time.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So we'll come back with a basketball video. Appreciate you guys. And I actually want to touch really quickly before we get out of here on something Josh brought up in the Discord about, is it a dead ball or cold weather? Don't believe any of this. This is what happens early in the season. When you shorten when your pitchers are only throwing 80 pitches, like 85 pitches, and you're using more of your bullpen and everybody's trying to win and you're actually getting the best effort from most teams not named Chicago White Sox, you're going to see lower scoring games. It's just it's like, it's just the way it always goes. When it gets into the middle of the summer and you get the guys who are brought up from AAA who have to pitch 5 innings or whatever for Miami, that's when you get those crazy 15-run games. But there's still been some of those games. But it does make an interesting argument for like smaller slates, whether you want a full stack or not. If you're playing like even single entry stuff, I think that's an interesting way to look at it. All right, we'll see you guys later. Good luck to everybody. I'll be live at 6 Eastern, and we'll talk baseball and basketball.